So that trip was just this catharsis of finding all of these people that I didn't know how they would react to me, or if I would be welcomed, or if the whole thing would just be super awkward. And it ended up being just this giant hug from my country, my food, my family, my friends. It was the most soul-filling week I can remember.
Welcome to Dishin Up Diaspora, where we explore how culinary traditions connects us to culture, history, and each other. I'm your host, Chef Emme, and I'm so happy and honored to have you here today. I do have an ask for you. If you are enjoying Dishin Up Diaspora, please make sure that you are subscribed wherever you are listening on. And if you have some extra time, I would also love an honest review. Your support and honest feedback is going to help us make this podcast continue to grow. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Dishin Up Diaspora Podcast and follow me at ChefEmme_. Today, we have a fellow Brazilian in the house, y'all. I am so excited to be joined by Camille Morgenstern, the founder of the Rio Kitchen, a brand that is a love letter to her hometown, Rio de Janeiro, told through recipes, stories, and objects that bridge distance and memory. Camille, welcome.
Thank you, Emme. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. I'm so pumped. You are, I think, my second Brazilian, and I'm so excited. Before we get started, I want to learn all about your story. But before we get started, let's play this little game that I like to call Quick Dish.
All right.
I'm going to say two things, and then you just tell me which one kind of speaks to you the most. Okay. California sunshine or Carioca coast?
Carioca coast.
Brigadeiro or brownie?
Brigadeiro.
These are easy, man.
These are very easy.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Street food or fine dining?
Street food.
Brazilian stroganoff or Brazilian stroganoff or American stroganoff?
Do I have to answer?
I know, right? Both is an answer. Okay. Cafezinho or espresso?
Cafezinho.
Risotto or pasta?
Risotto.
Solo travel or a group getaway?
Depends on the group.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Okay, thanks for entertaining me.
Thank you.
So, okay, tell me about your story. You are a carioca. What does a carioca even mean for the folks out there?
So carioca, I always say it's sort of like saying a Parisian is from Paris or a New Yorker from New York, but we have this word that defines the identity of a person from Rio. It's a huge part of the personality of Rio. There's just this carioca way of being. It embodies kind of that lifestyle of Rio of just having, I would call it a leveza, which is just like a lightness and just a fun approach to life and balance. And it's sort of this healthy lifestyle, but you love to dance and drink and play. And so it sort of embodies that entire Rio culture.
Yeah, I love that. So you were born in Rio, but then you immigrated to the U.S. when you were 17 years old?
Yes. I moved here indefinitely when I was 17 to go to college. And I wasn't sure what would happen when I graduated. And at that pivotal moment in time, I was sitting in Rio trying to make a decision after my graduation. And I decided to move to California.
Yeah.
And then I've been here since.
Nice. So, and then I read that you were here for like a really long time without going back home at all. How is that? Did you have any family, friends, anybody that you knew? What was the... Yeah.
How did that happen?
How did that happen?
You know, it's hard to say. It wasn't like I made a decision. I will not be going to Brazil from this day forward.
Yeah.
My dad moved from Rio to France. My grandmother passed away and the ties just slowly faded. Every year there was something else. Like I was starting a new job. You know, you get your 2 weeks of vacation in the US and where do I go? And a lot of that became dedicated to I want to travel someplace new. And then there was a baby and then there was a pandemic and time just kept accumulating into 15 years of not going back to Brazil.
Yeah. So when you were here, did you surround yourself with like Brazilian people, like Brazilian food, like how, or did you really like immerse in that like American culture?
I really immersed and I always say that it was, you know, my distance from my culture is both personal, but just happened when I moved here and I wanted to blend in,
Yeah.
as I think most people say when they first move abroad. And then the other side was just that my culture wasn't there for
Yeah.
me. And I don't remember meeting a single Brazilian during my life in college. And there would be like Latino groups, but I didn't really identify, you know, they would have like salsa night. And I'm like, I can't salsa. I don't, you know, so I just kind of faded into kind of living the American college life. And I kept my Brazilian friends from childhood, but before we have the technology we have now, it just became like, oh, we have a phone call here and there, and I would go home every break during college, and that kind of kept my connection. But then once I was out on my own, it just faded. In California, it became a little bit easier. I remember when I first moved to California, there was this one Brazilian shack right next to UC Berkeley, and it was like, like, oh my gosh, there's a Brazilian restaurant. And that was, I found Brazilian food, and that was something I had not found for the first 5 years of living here.
It's crazy because I mean, Seattle too, when we moved here, there was like a you know, core little group of Brazilians, but like going to school, they had like the Latinos and like all these other cultures. It was like I don't speak Spanish, you know, like I don't really relate as much as like the other, you know, Latino people do. So it's definitely like, okay, either that or just become an all-American girl. I guess that's kind of what, you know, I chose, or like I kind of felt pushed to having to do that. So I can definitely relate to that like a lot. But I skipped over kind of life in Brazil because I want to hear about that. You spent the first 17 years of your life there. How was that? How was growing up in Rio? Especially like I want to learn about like the food. Like how did food show up in those early years of your life?
So there was a small gap in my childhood from when I was 3 to 6 when I did live in the U.S. Okay. So most of my memory, you know, and then I don't think I had memories before that. So from when I moved back 6 to college is when I can kind of speak to living in Brazil. And so my family is from a strong Italian heritage. I'm third generation Italian Brazilian. And from what I hear, there were members of my family that just spoke Italian at home. And so a lot of my food memories and food culture, especially tied to a kitchen, were making Italian food. You know, Christmas we celebrated with Italian food. And then just growing up in Brazil was, you know, we ate all of the things that kids love to eat, like pão de queijo. And then every time I go to Rio now, and I love going to grocery stores. So my favorite activity when I travel.
Mine too. Mine too.
It is by far the most underrated tourist event, is walk into a grocery store and just look at what is on the shelves. So when I go to Rio, I love it. I'm like, oh my God, todinho. And so I gave that to my kids when I was there. And then you see all the like junk food truly that you remember as a kid that, you know, you thought people ate everywhere. And then after leaving, you realize, oh, those are actually like my home childhood foods.
Yeah, I love that. That's so funny. They taste so different. Like chocolate, I remember chocolate tasting so different here in America, and I hated it like so much. Like I missed the flavor of like Brazilian chocolate. I don't know if like now it's kind of all the same, but I distinctly remember like all the little like chocolate treats that I would eat at home. And then like when we moved to the US, I'm like, yeah, give me. So I feel like also the US, everything was like more giant, and I was like, ooh, this huge like chocolate bar.
Size.
Yeah, give it to me.
It all.
Like, and I would take a bite, and I'm like, oh, this is so gross. Like,
and when you think about it, you know, I especially, let's talk about brigadeiro for a second, since that was in your quick fire. So it's such a simple thing, right? It's like 3 ingredients, and I had never found those flavors here. And then I realized like a lot of our desserts in Brazil have condensed milk, and condensed milk is like the most wonderful ingredient. Like, and why is no one else using this?
I don't know.
And why can't we make, why isn't brigadeiro something everybody eats all over the world all the time?
I have that question about condensed milk too. I'm like, I was sitting the other day, I'm like, almost every single dessert that like at least we make in our house, like pudim, brigadeiro, like even in our mousse, like we put condensed milk. I'm like, why haven't they figured this out yet? That is the secret sauce, guys.
Really,
hey.
Truly. So a lot of the, you know, my grandmother used to make palla italiana, which I don't actually think, I think it comes from kind of like that Italian salami, chocolate salami, but she would make like a sheet pan version of it. And there was a Christmas that, you know, my grandmother didn't have a lot of disposable income. So she made, we looked under the Christmas tree and we're like, what are those weird little like hand decorated cans? And she had taken these cans of Niscau and she had bought like paper and ribbon and decorated each one for
Aw.
me and my sister and my two cousins.
Yeah.
And so when it was time to open gifts, we were all like, that's the one we want. We're
Yeah.
dying to know what that is.
Yeah.
And she had made these little individual wrapped palle italiana, which is really
Aw.
kind of like brigadeiro with a little, almost like a graham cracker. Biscotti
Yeah.
maizena, but
Yeah.
the equivalent would be a graham cracker. And,
Yum.
you know, I'm like, why hasn't this been figured out yet?
Yeah, so good. I want to get into this like Italian Brazilian thing because I've been doing a lot of research for my book, and I'm just like so fascinated because I mean, I've even from back when I lived in Brazil, my first 6 years, I do remember like Italians being a thing, like Italian culture being like a thing in Brazil, and we eat a lot of cheese and a lot of like pasta and a lot of pizza, like Brazilian pizza. I'm sorry, but the best. Okay.
Yes. I have decided my next Rio season, because as in the Rio Kitchen, I've been shooting these small little seasons every time I go, and the next season will be how Brazil makes cultural foods superior somehow. And in the first thought was pizza.
True. Yeah.
Starts with pizza.
It's so good. And my mom, I mean, like, we're not Italian at all. We're Baianas. We're from Bahia. But like, she was like the chef of the family, and like pizza nights in our house. And I mean, when I say family, it's like 50 of us, like all the cousins and everything. Like, she was the queen of like Brazilian pizza night. So good. So I always knew that like Italian Brazilians were a thing, but like it wasn't until now that I like really like dove deep into like my cookbook and researching like the story and how it all happened, that it really was like, wow, it all kind of like made sense, like all the puzzles. And I guess at first I really just thought the European immigrants were all just like down south, but there's a lot in the southeast as well. Yeah.
So my mom's side of the family is German from the south, and I think that area, Rio Grande do Sul, is a lot of German influence.
Yeah.
But what I also didn't realize this until recently, when I started to dive into my story a little bit more, and realizing that Brazil actually has the second, or maybe the largest, Italian diaspora outside of Italy. Yeah. Which is a crazy thought. Yeah. And when I moved here, and, you know, I went to school in the East Coast, and a lot of people also carry that Italian heritage. And it was a little different from mine. And when I said, oh, yeah, my family's Italian too, and they'd be like, but you're Brazilian. Yeah. I'm like, but yes, but we also came from someplace else, and we have our own melting pot. And then I really, you know, my identity crisis just piled on I don't know what I am anymore. And I definitely felt that Italian heritage more strongly, you know, when I would go to my grandmother's house. She would listen to Pavarotti, not Caetano Veloso. So I grew up with this sort of very strong Italian culture in our house. And when I sat at her in her living room, she would watch High, which is like the Italian TV, not novelas. Not novelas. But what I learned from the story, you know, and then I slowly started to dive into the story, and I'm very lucky because my grandmother wrote this sort of 40-page book about our family history.
Really?
Yes.
That's such a treasure.
It's such a treasure that, you know, I just dove into it, and it talks a lot about where we all came from and how far back it goes. And, you know, her great grandfather came from Sorrento and went to Sao Paulo to work in a textile factory and became a dyer. And then on her dad's side, her dad was born in Italy, and he was studying architectural engineering, and he got pulled from school to go to war, World War One. And then the story that she writes is that he after the war didn't want to go back to school because he had fallen in love with a prostitute. So his dad promptly shipped him to Brazil, where opportunities were coming up, and there was a huge Italian community, and so he landed in Sao Paulo and met my great grandmother, and so began our kind of Italian journey. But she, as a child, also they decided to go back to Italy at one point, and so she spent a lot of her childhood in Italy. Her sister was born in Italy. And then they decided to go back to Brazil due to some family mismanaging of property and funds. And so they went back. And I didn't even know this until I read her book, but my grandmother had a brother who passed away from diphtheria on the journey home. It's all, but again, just having this documentation is incredible. So then they really started to settle their life predominantly in Sao Paulo. And then she ended up marrying a Carioca.
Okay.
And that's how we ended up in Rio.
Yeah. Wow. Do you still have family in Italy at all? Like, do you think you can
I don't
trace
know.
any?
I see, you know, sometimes I think about where will the Rio Kitchen be in 10 years. And I think I'll be journeying in Italy looking for the deeper layers of heritage, because I'm sure, you know, that it's there. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I'd probably start with her book. But
I'm like getting goosebumps just because, again, like researching for my book and just understanding this, like how big of a melting pot Brazil is. And really, like, it's like, I don't understand like how people don't understand that Brazil is, I think, probably, what's the word, like it's probably like the number one like melting pot and the number one kind of like, it's like the
diverse,
but like it's like the original, like if America is this such
colony,
this like, yeah, like it's just, if you can understand the concept of America being this land of opportunity that all these immigrants came to, like Brazil is that times like 100, you know. Just in like the transatlantic slave trade, we had a third of like the enslaved people come to Brazil. Like 5 million come to Brazil, whereas in America it was only like 400,000. And like the Italian, I've researched that, like I didn't know about Italian, but I know that it's like the largest Black diaspora outside of the continent of Africa is in Brazil. The largest Lebanese diaspora, the
Kibi.
Largest. Yeah,
I never knew. You know, Kibi to me was a thing.
I know, I didn't know until I started working at a Lebanese restaurant here that I was like, oh, it's not Brazilian. It's this Arab thing. I had no idea. And the largest Japanese diaspora as well. So
I did know that. I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
maybe I told you that.
Maybe.
Didn't I send you some? I think I sent you something after we started diving into this whole diversity thing.
Exactly. So like Brazil's kind of like the, I can't think of a word, like the motherland, like the motherland of like the melting pot, diverse, whatever. And I just wish people like knew this, you know, knew this history. It's like, it makes me crazy because it's like when I came here, people were always also like, oh, but you're Brazilian. But like, how can you be something else? Like if you're Brazilian, like it's just this one like type of person that can be Brazilian, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, it would send me into this crazy tangent as well, and like really inspired me to like do all this research and learn about my heritage and learn about like Brazilian history as well, you know. So I love hearing that, you know, your about your family and even like the Germany side of it as well. Like it's crazy. Have you been down south at all?
You know, we did a pilgrimage with my mom at some point. So my mom was estranged from her family. She ran away from home, I think at age 16, and went to Rio. Yeah. And was just distant from that whole family. And I remember at some point when I was probably about 10, we went on this journey for her to reconnect with her sister. And I met her sister and some cousins. But they were still just very distant from us, and we never had a relationship or any continuity to that trip. I think it was just something she had to do. Yeah. But I do think about that too, about, you know, I know them on Facebook, like I have some contact with them, but no history or relationship really. Yeah,
totally. It's wild to me. We had some family friends and they're from the South and they speak like, I think it's Ukrainian actually, like completely fluent. So it's just like wild. And it's like, they're Brazilian, just as Brazilian as me, you know. And again, just that crazy melting pot. Okay, so you, after 15 years, went back to Brazil. What was that journey back home like for you?
Well, it's the story that is really emotional because I had no intention of going back. I always thought, oh, someday I'll take my kids. We'll get back there. And then my dad passed away, and my dad lived in France, and he wanted to be buried with my mom. So I had to take this journey of taking his ashes due to a series of other bureaucratic complications. So it was sort of his last ask. And so there I went. I left my kids at home for the first time, and it was going to be a very short trip. And it was in my head, it was like, I just have to go do this thing. And the minute I got off that plane, I just felt that like heavy Rio air and just this familiarity that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And my best friend picked me up. She was the one who took me in that trip, and she was going to help me tie all the loose ends because I hadn't seen the rest of my family in a while. I didn't want to impose. I didn't know what our relationship would be like now. My aunt and my dad had also been estranged. So there was just some family things that I had to work out. And so I went alone thinking I just need to do the things
Yeah.
and not have my kids with me. But I didn't think I also need to do the emotional things.
Yeah.
So that trip was just this catharsis
Yeah.
of finding all of these people that I didn't know how they would react to me or if I would be welcomed or if the whole thing would just be super awkward. And it ended up being just this giant hug from my country, my food, my family, my friends. It was the most soul-filling week I can remember, and it changed everything. And I remember being on the plane home and saying to my husband, this changes everything. And I don't know what that means yet, but it changes everything. And slowly I wanted to incorporate Brazil back into my life. And then after not going for 15 years, so this was 2 years ago, I've now been to Rio 5 times since.
That's a lot of time. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm like getting emotional hearing your story because I feel like I can connect to like little bits and pieces of it. So did you like, do your kids know they were Brazilian? Did you grow up like, or did they grow up like knowing Brazilian things? Did you speak Portuguese with them? Like, how was that for you?
I didn't. And it was in the someday bucket. Someday maybe they'll learn Portuguese. You know, they heard me occasionally speak Portuguese when my dad would visit. We spoke Portuguese. When my sister visits, she's almost like me and you, where it's almost easier to just go the English route. Everyone else speaks it. And we're a little rusty in the Portuguese. So they,
which, by the way, like when I hear you speaking your Portuguese and like when you've done your, you know, videos in Brazil, I'm like, oh my God, I get like self-conscious. I'm like, oh my God, I need to practice my freaking Portuguese because I can't sound like that.
You know, in the last 2 years, it has gotten a little bit smoother. It was certainly a lot rustier on that first trip. And now since going, I've also just reconnected in a way with people where, you know, Brazilians love the WhatsApp voice messages.
I know.
So I just started
I saw a meme about that.
My Portuguese.
Talking to a Brazilian, it's like the voice. And I'm like, that's so side note, this is a totally different story. I have a Brazilian like personal trainer, and she's always like sending me voice messages, and I'm always like and I'm like texting her back like 3 words. Very American.
You're like, okay, thanks.
Thanks.
So I think just speaking more, and then I had to deal with all this bureaucratic stuff that had happened, which is a whole other language of Portuguese that I don't speak when you're trying to talk about
professional
lawyer speak. So so just doing all this stuff in Portuguese, I think it has smoothed it out a little bit. But my kids, now they're learning Portuguese. My oldest is in a Portuguese lesson, and they are very aware that they're Brazilian now. I think before they were little, so maybe that was part of it. But now, you know, my 7-year-old will. I think there was a World Cup or the Olympics, and he would come home and he would be like, I drew Brazilian flag. And
so proud of it.
Very aware, so proud. And then, you know, we'll go to a Brazilian market and Brazilian restaurants. And now I've made Brazilian friends, and people will come over and we'll speak Portuguese. And it's become this whole universe in my life that I would have never found if I hadn't started the Rio Kitchen and just expanded my world into Brazilianness.
I love that. The Rio Kitchen. Tell me about that. Tell me about the journey to creating that.
So that was a response to everything that was happening to me when I came home from Brazil. I was like, what do I do with all this stuff? Like, I have all of these emotions and this desire to connect, and how do I build this bridge that, you know, hasn't been there? And to me, the first thing is food. So the bridge has always been, if there was anything left in my Brazilianness, it was the stroganoff that I would make, or every time I saw coxinha, my eyes would beam in happiness. But so food became the thing, and I'd always wanted to do something with food. I've always wanted to write a cookbook. I just, it's so weird to say this out loud now, and I'm like, I didn't know my why. I didn't know my story. I didn't know what I had to offer that would be different. And then I realized, oh, I want to document recipes from my childhood so that I can pass them on. And because I don't see them documented anywhere in English, you know, I would go to the library or go to bookstores, even the bookstores dedicated to cookbooks, and talk to the owners, and they'd be like, yeah, we have like one Brazilian book from 2003. So it started with wanting to kind of just make this personal blog, right? I'm just going to start doing some of this work and start this Instagram. And then I asked my husband, who is a video producer, and I was like, would you film me cooking?
Yeah.
And I had never been on camera.
Yeah.
I was really horrified at the idea, but if I wanted to share this on a platform, I kind of figured that was something I was going to have to do. And so we started doing that, and we just started making the videos, and I started writing some recipes and mostly sharing the food and the culture. The recipe writing, as you know, is like so labor intensive, and I want it all to come out perfectly, and so it became a lot more. It became the most complicated piece of the puzzle, and then the whole thing just kind of escalated into, well, if I want to talk about our food, I also have to talk about our tables, because every time I would go to Rio, whether it's someone's house or a restaurant, just the idea of how our tables are set, and they're so beautiful and colorful, and there's this whole ritual. And there's no like we turn tables every 75 minutes situation at a restaurant. And so I've always loved handmade things, especially kitchen and table things. So I wanted to curate this little collection. I met an artist, two artists actually started the collection that were Rio artists. So I started this little online shop that was kind of meant to just complement what I was doing, you know, thinking, you know, you can't stop the entrepreneur brain from being like, what else can we do? What else can we add to the plate as we're trying to figure this out? So it became a shop, and it became an expression of all these feelings, and it became a place to start documenting all of this food, both my history. And then I also thought about my history, like, well, my recipes are, a lot of them are Italian, and that's where the diving into the cultural heritage came in.
I love that. Yeah, when I look at your brand, it's just like a lifestyle, Brazil lifestyle brand. I really, like that. It's not just the recipes, because it's so much more, and it's, you know, it's really interesting to keep like diving into the history and like different pieces, and like you said, the table, like everything, every little detail like matters. And it's like what makes, you know, a Brazilian table in our culture.
Well, and it's evolved into areas that I didn't plan to, like my outfits, which was a thing that I, you know, I think when I wanted to film, I was like, well, if I'm going to film myself cooking Brazilian food, I'm going to wear something I just got at Farm Rio when I was in Rio. And then that became a source of questions, and became part of the brand. And it was almost like the same time that this whole the Rio Kitchen was developing, I was also in this personal journey of like coming to terms with my dad having passed away, who was my last living parent. My second child had just turned 3, so I was starting to reconnect with my own identity. I was about to turn 40. We were about to leave the city we had lived in for 17 years. It was like a huge phase of personal transformation, and then, you know, kind of finding that personal style in the Brazilianness was really fun, and now it just is part of the brand too.
I love that. I feel like with every guest, you know, we're so different from each other, but like so much like similarities like in the stories too. I feel like I'm also kind of approaching that where it's like I'm coming back home, and this like journey back home, and it's just I can relate so much. So beautiful to see. So tell me what's next with Rio Kitchen. Did you just get back from a trip to Rio?
I did.
One of those 5 trips.
I did just come back from trip 5. Actually, this was trip 6.
Okay.
So I took 4 trips solo, and then I took a trip with my whole family. I decided part of the journey was
to ask if your family has been there.
So my husband had been there once. Which was the one time 15 years prior. And so I decided it was time to, if I'm building this bridge, they have to cross it with me at some point. You know, during my last trip, before I took the family, I remember sitting with I call her my aunt. She's my family friend aunt. And I was kind of like, what am I doing here? I'm here without my family. I keep coming here, and I don't know what I'm looking for. And I don't, you know, I miss my family, and I want them to be a part of this. And she's the one who said to me, you know, I like to go to Olinda a lot, and I like to go there because it connects me to my dad. And maybe you like to come to Rio because it connects you to like the happiest memories of your dad. And that kind of calmed my heart and made me realize, oh, this is a personal journey, but the continuation of the story involves my family. So I took my kids in November. We had a Thanksgiving in Rio. That was super fun. It was the best because we just had Thanksgiving at my aunt's house, and
Yeah.
I didn't cook anything.
Yes.
I was just a guest. It was lovely.
I love that. Wait, are they celebrating Thanksgiving in Brazil now?
No.
Okay, I
No,
was
we
gonna say,
did.
wait, what?
No,
Is
just
this a thing now?
us. Just us on a random Thursday
I
in
love
Rio
that.
having a big
That's
food party.
awesome. That's so cool.
So then on the last trip, I just went back alone. Was really a work related, trying to figure out the next steps for the Rio Kitchen. And I went with I had very specific goals this year, and one of them was to work on I call it my kitchen confidence, because while I love to cook and I love to share cooking, my imposter syndrome comes up in the recipe writing because I'm not a trained chef, and then I realized the imposter syndrome is just like a red flag of like professional development flag. Go develop.
Yes, exactly.
So I was looking for cooking classes, locally, and then I actually found a Brazilian gastronomy class at the Cordon Bleu in Rio.
Yeah, I follow that journey on Instagram.
Yeah. So it was a 3-day class, and that kind of anchored my trip. And then I squeezed in 2 days of production in what I'm now defining as Rio season 4. And over the last few years of making this content in Rio, I've met amazing chefs, and I've met people who own restaurants, and I've just discovered new places that I want to share, because I just think eating out in Rio is amazing. Again, just better. And so it just led, it was this work trip of the next step, and it was really fun. It was really productive, and it was really crazy. I would leave at 7 a.m. and stay out of the house till 7 p.m. just hitting the ground on all of these fronts. So that was what this trip was about.
I love that.
And then now that I'm back, I think I'm working on all this content slowly coming out, and it's really exciting to see everything shape up and the relationships I've built. And I'm just so grateful for the Brazilian community I've built, both virtually through followers on Instagram. I've made such amazing Brazilian friends. Some I've met in real life, some we just chat. And I know people say social media takes so much, but it has given me so much. And then the professional relationships as well. So what I wanted to do, what's coming next, is that I am working on a new series that I will focus on Substack, on my Substack, which is also the Rio Kitchen. And it's going to be on our prato feito.
Yes.
Which prato feito is what I call prato perfeito. So I'm calling it the perfect plate. And it's our Brazilian composition of rice, beans, meat, veggies. And in my journey to find my Brazilianness, I worked with a Brazilian nutritionist, and she gave me this meal plan, which included a prato feito every day for lunch. And my entire composition, my body composition, my energy level, my health, everything has changed. My immunity, everything has improved since I've added this cultural element to my diet. So I've wanted to figure out how to share this. But I didn't want I don't want the Rio Kitchen to become, the Brazilian diet.
Right. Yeah.
Because that was never what it intended to be, but it did make such a difference for my age and my health. So I think just focusing on how much this cultural plate can give to people, and just eating whole foods and beans. Gosh, there's so many micro diets that take beans out of the equation, and they're just such an amazing superfood. So that's my next thing, is a new series.
I love it. You're like the Brazilian Martha Stewart or Gwyneth Paltrow with her, what is it? It's like Goop or something.
Goop,
like that.
No. Yeah. But approachable.
Yes.
Because I still have 2 kids. So part of the element, actually what really worked well about food this way, is that so much of the recipes we see on Instagram are kind of these one pot things, or how to make a sheet pan dinner. And my kids won't eat a pile of food that's mixed together.
Right. Yeah.
So when you work on plate composition as a Brazilian plate, there's a rice, there's a bean, there's a chicken, there's a broccoli, and they can pick and choose those elements. Versus, so it just worked really well for a family kitchen. The reality, I think, of the recipe writing is I have 2 kids and 2 businesses. So it is kind of teaching and sharing how I do that.
Yeah. I love that, especially because with my kids as well, their palates are all different, but I think what works is having the choices. And even when I was I was chef for the school district, it was all about letting the kids choose what they want to eat. And it's Brazil, like, I don't know about you, but like I didn't grow up with like a kids menu at all. Like nowadays, like this last time that I went with my family, there was like kids menus, like kind of Americanized, fries and like chicken.
In Brazil?
Yeah. In Bahia, they had like kids menu. It was like rice, beans, fries, and chicken. So
that's still
that's still
a Brilliant plate.
Yeah.
It's very different than the pile of beige fried food that is a kid's
like
plate
and fries. Yeah. Yeah, so that's how my kids eat. I'm like, I'm not making you any special like buttered noodles or anything. So I love that. I can't wait to see all those recipes and try it myself.
Yeah, I mean, you have your hands full.
So. Yeah. Poor kids, y'all. It's a lot. They still gotta eat though.
Yes, it's like I call it the family Venn diagram of like what will everyone eat, and there's I don't know, not much in the middle of that Venn diagram.
Yeah, because I'm not making separate meals for people. You know what I mean? So
I end up making. I try not to short order cook, but I will make. I'd say if my husband and I want like I don't know if I want to make salmon or something I know the kids won't eat. I think what I worked with the nutritionist, which was really great, is she was like, feed yourself first and then figure out what everyone else is going to eat. It really was as a mom.
And she's Brazilian, right?
She is Brazilian. Because as a mom, you really put yourself last.
Yeah.
And she was like, flip the switch, put yourself first. And then if that's not going to work, figure out how to like zhuzh it for the family.
Exactly.
Because, I'd stopped eating things like fish because why would I cook just for myself? And then I realized, the highest level of self-care is cooking what I like that is healthy for me, and then figuring out.
I love that. That's some great advice. And I'll say, I feel like the health and wellness scene, like Brazilians are top superior. Like even, I mentioned my trainer, she's Brazilian, and like I honestly like didn't see like results with anybody but her. Like it's just the Brazilian way. It's
the same as the nutritionist. It was the first. It was the first person who didn't look at me and go like, oh, you're a certain figure, a certain this. Like, you should go on a keto diet, a protein diet, which is what every American nutritionist had put me on. And yes, of course that works. But that's not...
Right?
It's not sustainable. Not when you like food the way we do.
Yeah, exactly.
So when she gave me the carbs, I was like, this is easy. Yeah, I can keep this up so easily. Yeah. But this is something where I also like this angle because I think, especially in Rio, you have this incredible connection to health where everybody is so health conscious, but everyone's also like really fun, and they go out on Friday and they love food, and there's just a really interesting balance to that way of life that I think here we're either on the wagon or off the wagon, and there's no like long-term balanced lifestyle approach.
Yeah. I do remember that too, like a lot with like my mom and her friends and just like aunts and uncles. Like they were very like self-conscious, I guess you could say, about like their appearance, very like vain. Brazilians are very like we're into our looks, but like that didn't mean like I'm only gonna eat almonds like all day long. It was still like plates of like they would just add the salad and the legumes and all of that. So I feel like Brazil's got something right in the health and wellness department for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so then when is the next trip to Brazil for the Rio Kitchen? Have we planned that already? Is it in the calendar?
It's always in the back of my mind. I started planning for the holidays this year, and so possibility of the holidays, but I'm trying not to let more than say like 6, 7, 8 months max go by without visiting, whether it's just me or my whole family, because of the question of logistics and financials and all of the things. But I would really like to continue this cadence and this bridge, and even when I'm there and when I'm coming home, I'm like, how realistic is this life? And then and then I realize, I've met all these Brazilian families who live here, and this is what you do. I mean, if you want to stay connected, and there is a back and forth, but for the most part, a lot of them are making that journey once, twice a year.
Is it just one plane for you, or
it's two?
Okay.
Door to door, it's a 24-hour journey.
Okay. I was going to say maybe, for us, it's, I want to say 3, maybe 4. 3? So I have to fly somewhere here and then fly to either São Paulo, Rio.
To go to Bahia.
To go to Bahia. Yeah, there's no direct. So, it's quite a journey, but it's worth it.
Yes.
It's worth it.
So you have to go for longer. And that's the tricky part.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking I'd like to build a bridge where when my kids are a little older, we could go in the summer and have them spend a
Yeah.
prolonged period of time. Right
Yeah.
now there's just a lot to take out of routine
Yeah.
for that long.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
that's the direction is.
Yeah. Before the pandemic, my husband and I were like, maybe we'll go live in Brazil for like a year. Like, but then it all happened. The world shut down. And then
Yeah.
now, like, my oldest is in high school, and it's like a little harder to like take her out or like skip a year in high school with like college and all that. So we're here for a while, but that I feel like that's like a dream of mine to at least like go back for maybe like 6 months to a year, you know,
Mhm.
to like really like immerse myself back into my culture. You know, I
think about that daily right now
Yeah.
in the world we are currently living
I know,
in.
exactly.
It's
Get me out
really
of here.
hard not to
Yeah.
think about what if we just ran away for
Yeah.
a year
Yeah,
and
exactly.
immersed in the culture and let my kids
Mhm.
have some strong
Yeah.
memories of a childhood in Brazil.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what would that look like? What would that feel like for me? Would it kind
Mhm.
of crush the magic a little bit, because it's lovely to go to Rio
Yeah,
and you're
and-
not going to work in that
living there.
heat,
Yeah,
and you're
exactly.
not dealing with the bureaucracy
Totally.
because Brazilian bureaucracy was gonna be like
I
goosebumps.
know.
Like,
A trip to the bank
Um,
is like a day. You got to
so-
take the whole day off of work to like figure it out. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, what? Why do I have to give my CPF to buy anything?
yes,
like,
every
what?
time. Yes, that whole process of I just want to buy something.
I
Why is
know.
this
I'm
so
literally just,
complicated?
can I get this sock, please? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. But, and they get like so confused when you're like, I don't have one,
Oh.
sir. Now I do, but still, like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, and when I went with my sister and she hadn't been there in a long time and possibly never in a shopping state, and
yeah.
and I was like, isn't this funny? Like how in the U.S. like you never say your social security
yeah.
number out loud, and
It's like
in Brazil you
completely
just
opposite.
are
Yeah.
constantly giving it away
Exactly.
to everyone all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. So funny. And then getting my CPF, getting my like everything registered in Brazil, and my ID.
Título.
Oh my God, everything. And it's like, I have my passport, but they're like, no, we need your ID, your Brazilian ID. I'm like, this is my passport.
Yep.
This is like, I can't have this unless like, you know, I was born here, you know. It's just, yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe I can't live in Brazil for a year.
Well, you could for a year in
Yeah.
that sort of expat model,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like there are a lot of things to
Yeah.
figure out.
There's pros and cons of both. We live like in this like third culture space where it's like we see the good and the bad in both countries. I feel like
That's
you know?
true.
Yeah.
It's that saying in Portuguese. How does it go? Aqui é ruim, mas é bom. Lá é
Yeah.
bom, mas é
That's a
ruim.
week. I haven't heard that one. That's a good one. But that totally makes complete sense. All right. Well, let people know where they can find you, and follow the Rio Kitchen and subscribe and do all the things.
I'm Camille. You can find me on Instagram at the Rio Kitchen, which is the same handle as my Substack at the Rio Kitchen, or just go to my website www.theriokitchen.com.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Emme. It was so
enjoyed
nice
it.
to meet
I
you
know,
in real
too.
life.
Yeah, same.
And finally chat all Brazilian
I know.
expat cultural immigrant
Yes.
life
Yes,
things.
I loved it. Next time we'll have to do one in Portuguese.
Yeah.
We can get through it.
After you do your tour of Bahia
Yes,
and you
yeah.
practice.
Practice my Portuguese. Oh my God. I speak Portuguese like every day with my parents and stuff, but it's like, it's a Portu-English mixture,
Mhm.
It's like whatever comes
We
out
call
first.
it Porglish.
Porglish,
In
yeah.
my family, we
Yeah.
call it Porglish.
It's like a mixture. So like when I have to like, okay, no, I can't say it in English. Like I just can only speak Portuguese.
Do you
I
swear in Portuguese?
No.
Swearing in Portuguese feels so good.
Does
You
it?
should
I
try.
should try.
You should try.
And I swear a lot, but I swear in English.
Yeah,
don't
no,
know, maybe
I
should
realized
try.
when I started going back and having these feelings
Yeah.
about whatever the bureaucracy was, and I
Yeah.
would talk to somebody that I could swear in front of. And
Yeah.
my unfiltered self, and I was like, God, that feels so good. There's
Yeah.
so many good swear words.
Yeah, no,
in
there is,
Portuguese.
and it sounds. So I feel like I could get the sound out of my body better in Portuguese for sure. Porra!
Yeah, there's just something unmatched.
Yes. Anyways, thank you so much for being here
You're
and
welcome. Thank
sharing
you.
a little bit more of our culture with everybody. And thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, like our podcast, and we'll see you again next week. Same time, same place.